Ready? Play.
Hello, everybody. We hadn't even decided who's going to lead, I guess. Now I'll introduce us, and then we'll get going.
Just go.
Yeah, welcome to Talking Tennis. It's myself, Jack Edwards, and Nick Carter. I'm very excited to talk to my man Nick about what's happened today, because it's been a very interesting day at the French Open. It's been a very interesting tournament. A little bit of a sum up, a little bit of our thoughts and stuff. Nick, you take the reins. Where do you want to start?
Well, traditionally on this show, we kind of go with the women's draw first. So may as well start there. I think obviously there were actually some pretty interesting, which today featured some pretty interesting matches on the whole, I thought. Actually, quite a lot of action from definitely 3 out of the 4 that were well worth your time watching.
And then even that fourth one, I take it is the same one you're thinking of, is a result that's certainly going to pique some interest. So every match worth talking about, right?
Definitely every match worth talking about. And I would actually say that the match that just finished, that sadly you probably had to miss.
Yes, I didn't get to see it.
Was actually pretty entertaining for the most part. I don't know if you were able to follow the live score, but it was quite a topsy-turvy match.
Well, go on, talk me through it.
Okay, the last ball has dropped on this match, so we may as well start from the end of the day. So Sabalenka versus Sloane Stephens. And what happened was Sabalenka went 5-love up in the first set.
Oh,
yeah, you've seen the score, so you don't have it. Stephens then won the next 5 games in a row to take it to 5-all. They then both held serve, took it to a tiebreak. Stephens was 4-2 up in the tiebreak and lost the tiebreak 7-5. It was all kind of momentum shifts. Like, I genuinely thought Stephens would get it, and unfortunately, as the finish line for the set got into sight, she got tight. And but up to that point, she was doing a really good job of dealing with the power Sabalenka was coming at her. Sabalenka started making a few errors because she was getting frustrated with she was able to absorb and redirect the pace she was getting throwing at her. When we got into set 2, however, Sabalenka, I think probably because she'd won that first set, started to find her range a little bit. She started to work the angles a lot more, and it became less and less Stephens was able to do until eventually, like, there was one break, kind of decided the set. But Stephens made it competitive. It was a nice contrast of styles in that match. But yeah, not a surprise, given that Stephens has never beaten Sabalenka, but it was on clay. It could have gone a bit differently, and Stephens made a good go of it.
Yeah, I'm more interested, I guess, given how the momentum shifted, how both players looked in terms of tightness. I know you said Stephens was tight, but what was happening? Like, was Sabalenka double faulting at any points? Was there any of that present in the tiebreak, or was it all Stephens?
The double faults weren't too bad that I remember. I'm having a look at the stats for it now that the French Open provide.
Yeah, I've got 2 double faults here. That Google's not particularly reliable, but two the whole match from Sabalenka. So that says to me it wasn't a nerves issue for her.
She was definitely tight. She became tight. She definitely lost a lot of rhythm during that first set because Stephens suddenly woke up and it wasn't an easy ride for her. And she was, as I said, just absorbing, redirecting, kind of looping the ball a bit so she couldn't get, making it high so she couldn't generate pace, or find it more difficult to generate pace. Obviously, it's Sabalenka. She's got a lot of power wherever she hits the ball, but it did make it a little bit trickier for her. And I think that just made Sabalenka get a bit tight as she lost those 5 games. And by the way, Sabalenka had set points during that run of 5 games that Sloane won. She had about 4 set points during that time, and Sloane just saved all of them at the end of the day. It ended up being just a miscued. What was it? It ended up being like Sabalenka's 5th set point in the tiebreak. Ended up being like a miscued backhand, or a miscued shot anyway from Stephens that decided it. Bit anticlimactic, really.
Yeah. So yeah, great result for Sabalenka in general. It sounded like a good match, and I honestly was expecting a lot more of a drubbing from Sabalenka against Stephens. So obviously 2 Grand Slam champs that kind of lived up to the billing in a lot of ways. And going forward, Sabalenka sounds like she pulled it out of the bag. I would expect her to do pretty well in her next match, regardless of what happens. And it could be tight in this next match, right? Because, of course, on Suzanne Monglong, we had Kasatkina losing to Svitolina. Svitolina, of course, coming back from maternity leave, etc. I mean, this is one of the stories of the year. Obviously, this is just amazing at this point. Even to get to the quarterfinals for Svitolina is incredible. So whatever happens from here on out, still an amazing story. Pusher versus Pusher, right? And historically, it's funny because I saw a tweet on this. Svitolina is just like emphatic against famous pushers. Her head-to-head against Kerber, it's just so one-sided. Halep, so one-sided. Wozniacki, so one-sided. I don't want to say pusher. I don't diss the word with the word pusher though, Nick. Just to be clear, it's just it's just a term.
It's the term that's kind of out there in the main tennis community, really. I loved watching the match. I loved watching 2 quotes pushers going head to head and working the ball as they do. And they really worked it. It was a very scrappy match. I don't know if you saw it, but I would say scrappy is the word I would use.
I saw some of it. As the parts I saw were okay, actually. But I get the vibe anyway. I know what was happening. I'm not a pusher, by the way. My dad is famously a pusher, and I've had to deal with that for years. His pushing ways. If he's watching from Mallorca at the moment, he'll know exactly what I'm talking about.
We are talking about tennis balls, right, Jack?
Yeah, we're talking about tennis balls. Yeah, it's only coaching that goes on off the court. On the court, Nick. Of course it's on the court. I meant as a joke. Never mind. Just to scrap that train of thought. So back to Svitolina. Let's keep this on track. Amazing story, obviously, right? How happy are you for it? I mean, were you expecting any of this? It's all happened quite fast, right? Obviously, she had that title in Strasbourg before she started the tournament. So
the title in Strasbourg did kind of heavily influence me. So I actually put Svitolina in my 4th round when I did my draw bracket. And I had her losing to Marketa Vondrousova, who obviously didn't overcome Kasatkina. So I expected Svitolina to make second week. Quarterfinals is an amazing story. Like second week will be an amazing story, but the quarterfinals is just anything beyond this point is a bonus. And to see her hit the ground running like this, and like there have been other women over the years who've done something similar, coming back hitting the ground running. I mean, Kim Clijsters famously did it. You could argue Serena did it. So it's not a surprise that it can happen, but it's still a great story for her, especially given other context around her and obviously being Ukrainian. It's all and sort of her career up to this point of sort of top 10. Had a lot of great things kind of touted for her, and in the end didn't seem to be able to. What hasn't so far been able to maybe live up to the hype that she had when initially came on the scene. So to get to immediately go, demonstrate that she belongs in the elite. Is absolutely fantastic for her. I am looking forward to seeing what she does against Sabalenka, because again, that's another counterpuncher for her. For Sabalenka.
Clearly, she's excelled against other women of her kind of brand of tennis, I guess. She probably is there to be overpowered if Sabalenka can play her best tennis, but let's not underrate her. Sabalenka is a tall off, then Svitolina could easily be in the semis as well. I just think Sabalenka is so confident. That what you said to me, I know she was 5-0 up, but to then bounce back and still win the set, that's big. And in straight sets, that says a lot to me. So I'm confident. It's a very, very fascinating story, Nick. Are you happy to move on to the other 2 fourth rounds that we saw today? So we also had Mukova against Avanesian. Right?
This is the only one I didn't catch any of.
Yeah, likewise, I didn't see any of that. But it's more about the result, as we say, right? Yeah, that was the one you were mentioning earlier as the maybe one that's not as quite a spectacular a match, right? But the fact that Mukova's into the quarters, that's the big story, right? We've not seen her make a deep slam run since, I believe, was it the Australian Open? That's long ago as that now. A couple of years.
Yeah.
She had another. Don't think. Yeah.
21. 2021 when she made the semis.
Yeah.
No, John's saying Wimbledon 21.
I totally forgot about that.
Yeah, but you're right. Yeah, because she made the court. That was because Mukova famously to me had made the quarterfinals at Wimbledon her first 2 visits to the grass courts of SW19, and last year was her worst result, and that was the 3rd round. So to have her kind of, I don't think she's completed the set of Grand Slam quarterfinals. I think she's still got to break the US, but I definitely think to make Roland Garros, and a lot of people kind of called it. Like Vance has been very open and saying, on this show that he thought Mukova was going to make at least the quarters.
Yeah, I think a lot of people did. She was certainly my favourite for that quarter as well. I didn't think there was anybody there that was particularly threatening. Mukova in full health, Nick, is just a sight to behold. So long as she doesn't have any physical issues from here on out, it's going to take a very good performance to beat her. She just tends to run into a wall of some sort of physical issue at some point in the tournament. She's she's such a solid player. I've got a lot of faith in her next match. I believe that's against the winner of the other match, Pavlyuchenkova, right? Who beat Elise Mertens. It'll be interesting to see what happens here, because Pavlyuchenkova, again, should be applauded almost to the level of Svitolina, because this is a huge comeback, and almost more out of nowhere than Svitolina, because she hadn't had any momentum going into this tournament at all. We obviously knew how big a ball Pavlyuchenkova could hit, having made the final here a couple of years ago. But I'm still surprised with the scalps that Pavlyuchenkova has put together. Let me just get them up so I can remember, obviously.
She got Potapova, Mertens.
Yes, yeah.
Who else?
And Samsonova and Fruhvirtova. Obviously, Fruhvirtova was there to be beaten and overpowered, definitely, at this stage in her career. Samsonova, I'm always going to rate a Samsonova when she's right up there as my, I'm a fan favourite, definitely. She's a fan favourite of mine. Potapova I had in the semis, Nick. I'm ashamed to say.
Okay.
Yeah. So
I'm not surprised. I'm not surprised.
Just a massive hitter of the ball. I thought on these courts with a little bit of time, she's one of the few players that could actually make that work in her favour. But Pavlyuchenkova, outstanding against her. So I honestly think the 4 matches she's played so far might be probably tougher than the other 4 that have already made it to the quarters. Or the other 3, sorry, that have already made it to the quarters. I think she's had the toughest route. I think she thoroughly deserves to be there. And it's about 50-50 for me going into the Mukova match, because Pavlyuchenkova's hitting such a big ball at the moment.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, that Potapova match, that was an impressive comeback. The way that she was she almost just frustrated Potapova into losing, because she just wouldn't go away. And you shouldn't be surprised. Pavlyuchenkova is a top class player, and you'd expect that from someone who's made the quarterfinals at every major, got to the Roland Garros final, as you say. It's going to be a very interesting clash with Mukova, I think. I think that's the one that's probably the hardest to call. Like you can just about imagine a Svitolina upset on Sabalenka, but we know there's a heavy favourite in that match, and that's Sabalenka. Mukova, Pavlyuchenkova. Mukova's maybe the slight favourite, but it's not by much. And I think that's going to be a fascinating clash when that happens on Tuesday.
She's also, for me, Mukova has a better chance, I think, of beating Sabalenka, just given it's a power v power game for Pavlyuchenkova. Sabalenka would probably win that. Mukova at least brings something different to the table. Obviously, slices are going to be a pain in the bum for Sabalenka for sure. It's not a style she plays that often. She can counter it. She used to play Barty frequently, and she has wins over Barty. She has ways of countering it. It's not like it's a gimme that Mukova wins just because of a funky sort of game style. But I'd be more intrigued to see that, Nick, than see a Pavlyuchenkova Sabalenka semi-final.
Yeah, I think on balance I would be as well. Although you have got me thinking about, if, say, craziness happened and Karolina Mukova made the final, that would be a wonderful matchup against Iga, if that was Iga in the final, or even on. No, I think that I would enjoy the tennis they both.
Yes, yeah, of course, absolutely.
Second choice would be Ons versus Mukova. That would be entertaining.
Yeah, that would be good. Yeah, particularly at Wimbledon, I think would be amazing. I'd love to see that. It'd be slicing and dicing on the grass. That would be so good.
Oh yes.
Yeah, absolutely love that. In terms of actually having a chance against Iga though at the French Open,
I'm not saying she has a chance.
yeah, I know.
I think it'd be a funny. I just think it would create some fun moments.
I figured that. Just to clarify for me, it's got to be somebody who's, you have to have power. You have to have immense power to beat Swiatek in these conditions. By the way, Swiatek at this tournament so far is insane.
I didn't watch the Wong match. I didn't need to. I just caught the 3-minute highlights on Roland Garros, and that's all the information I needed, really. She has been supreme so far. Let's hope she's not had too soft a draw going into this, but we'll see. She didn't play today. She's playing tomorrow.
Yeah, you're right, Nick. It could work against her for sure. Sometimes it helps to have a few of those difficult matches under your belt. The Qinwen Zheng one, of course, last year, proving to be pretty helpful, I think, just to get her spurred into gear. Barely troubled after that. So, yeah.
But the semi-final could provide that, or if the semi-final could provide that, maybe, depending on who she gets.
I think everybody was obviously hoping Rybakina was going to be there. Now, maybe not so much. Ons, yeah. I don't fancy Ons against Iga.
Again, not to win, but I'm not again to win, to push.
That's about as much as you can ask, right, Nick? And it's a good question, actually. Like, who's going
to push her and wake her up?
Yeah, absolutely. And in that case, I mean, nobody actually looking at the draw. Pretty much, maybe Pera. So Pera actually is my outside pick because Pera, her best shot, I would say, is the first ball on return. And if somebody can hit a big return against Swiatek, because you get the chance, obviously the serve's probably still the weakness of the Iga game, right? You get the chance to rush off the first ball. Maybe Pera's the only person for me that can trouble her. But apart from that, no, I don't fancy the rest of the picks there.
So we're basically saying if Sabalenka in the final would be the biggest test Iga would have to deal with.
That's what we were all hoping for from the start, right? That would be so good.
Yeah. I'd say so. I mean, it depends on what angle you're coming from. Personally, I'm perfectly fine with Iga having an easier run.
Yeah, fair. I'm more impartial than yourself, Nick. To be fair, I want to see great tennis.
I'm okay with being impartial most of the time. Just give me some moments.
For the French Open final, fair enough, and I think most Iga fans will feel very nervous regardless of who she's playing in that final. For sure.
Which, let's face it, anyone who supported any player who's reached the top of the game, regardless, is going to be like nervous. I would fully imagine that John was super nervous before pretty much any ref in the match.
Yeah. I don't know. Maybe by the 14th final against Casper Ruud, he was a little relaxed.
How nervous were you before every Andy match in his pomp?
That's a different story, Nick. You always
in his pomp.
Every one of Andy's big matches, you were like, well, he's going to lose this, right? It's like,
even he lost Raonic at Wimbledon 16.
Even Milos, that was horrible. Even though that was straight sets, that was horrendous.
It was tight. Yeah,
it was exactly. It was super tight. He just didn't want him to lose any set. So that was rough, Nick. I gotta say.
Yeah. Okay.
Right. Should we move on to the men's?
Yeah. Let's tackle the men's draw. Let's see. So as I said, in terms of what I actually saw, we talked a little bit about. I think it was before we came on air or something. Alcaraz Musetti. It might have been with someone else anyway. That was obviously a highly anticipated match. We thought maybe given their previous clash in Hamburg, the fact that Alcaraz seems to be challenged by the others in the Farms generation, that it could be 4 or 3 sets and 4 or 5 sets, and it looked like at the start that might be happening. When Musetti got the early break, broke in the opening game of the match, went 2-love up, and we're like, okay. And then it was plain sailing for Carlos Alcaraz for the rest of the way, and Musetti just couldn't touch him. Alcaraz just put in a phenomenal performance, untouchable, and looking very, very strong right now.
Yes, I saw the whole match. In terms of why I thought Musetti would be a threat before the tournament even started, that Hamburg final when Musetti beat Alcaraz in 3 sets. Musetti's return, particularly his one-hander, was just so good at neutralising any of Alcaraz's serves. It was always in the Musetti strike zone, right? Because Alcaraz's serve, then, even now, not the best place. You're always going to get a chance to hit it. Musetti was so good at keeping it deep with so much spin. There was very little Alcaraz could do off the first ball. And generally, eventually, he could cause Carlos to overheat. Now, in this match, obviously, the rally temperament of Alcaraz, unfortunately, for the whole tour, has gone up a notch in those 9 months, right? So he's not missing anywhere near as much. But the biggest thing for me is the fact Alcaraz's drop shot and forehand combo game have gotten better in the last 9 months.
How did that get better?
I know exactly. Well, that Juan Carlos Ferrero touched on it. It was he's playing at 60%, right, man? He's going to be amazing. He's going to be whatever is better than world number one, world number negative, whatever. He was always saying, he's going to be incredible once he's the finished product. He's working with tools that he's not quite refined. I get it now. I think the Tsitsipas match in Barcelona was the first time, for me, I saw a match Alcaraz just played perfect from start to finish. He's obviously incredible, but he was untouchable. There was a few, mishits, but in terms of tactics, right, he just played every single shot at the perfect moment. He was one step ahead of Steph the entire time. I think the Medvedev match actually as well in Indian Wells, that's right up there too, in terms of just knowing when to come into the net and stuff and pulling Medvedev apart. So I still thought Musetti could have been a threat, but the chasm in performance, honestly, Musetti was still really good. That's the thing. Musetti didn't play badly. Alcaraz was just way. He's a league of his own. I am almost tempted to change my winner's pick now, but it'll be interesting. I still think I'll stick to my guns because in one of the other matches, Novak matched Alcaraz for a score, 3-2-2. So he had his own amazing match along with Alcaraz. It was against Juan Pablo Varillas, who, okay, a little bit lower ranked than Musetti, obviously, but Varillas is a great clay courter. I mean, he's got an insane forehand. He's a guy who does not shy away from the pressure moments. He still plays massive shots with his back against the wall. At the same time, we didn't expect anything less from Novak here, right? This did feel like once he's into gear and once he's going at the slams, this is the kind of scoreline he generates in his sleep, right?
Yeah, I get it. I didn't see the match. This is fully how I expected it to go. And judging by what I saw from Djokovic against Davidovich Fokina, having come through that, I would expect him to be in top gear for the rest of the tournament. And I don't know whether Varillas was struggling physically, judging by the number of games he won. I don't think so, because he won more than 3. But I definitely see Djokovic as being a major threat, which if this Alcaraz-Djokovic semi-final happens, that's just going to make it the blockbuster that we hoped it for, with these two in top gear finally clashing in what has to be the most anticipated match of the year. This is the one when 2023, our calendars turned over, we were like, when are these two going to meet? Are they going to meet in a slam? Where is it going to be? We're finally here. But we're not finally here because they both have other opponents to get through. So this could be a massive letdown if we get to the Tuesday's last more ball drops and one of them or both of them have lost.
Let's take a very quick look at who they've got next, and we can assess whether or not there's any chance of them not getting to the semis. Certainly, having just mentioned it, the Alcaraz-Steph matchup looks pretty one-sided nowadays. Right?
Oh, 100%. Steph's matchups against the top players right now are all one-sided. Yeah, let's be honest.
The worst of the worst matchups, though, in terms of the top 10, he'd take anybody else over Alcaraz, I think. And all of them are pretty bad matchups for him, right, as you say. But Alcaraz in particular on clay, that was horrific for him in Barcelona. I really don't see him being able to do much unless he has one of his best days ever. It's going to be, ugly, I think, for Tsitsipas. I'm expecting straight sets, honestly. Nick? Yeah, and then
I agree.
Novak Kachanov, do you know, that could be an issue potentially. I genuinely think if Djokovic's forehand hasn't quite sort of got into gear yet. And actually, we saw some pretty good signs against Pablo Varillas, 13 forehand winners, 7 forehand forced errors as well. Not many unforced errors. The problem is Varillas is nowhere near as good a defender as Khachanov is. He's not going to keep the rallies going for as long. He's not going to be able to keep the rallies neutral for as long. He probably didn't really get tested, to be honest. And the thing is, I would be feeling more reluctant to say Djokovic is going to get through this easily, were it not for the fact, not easily or in straight sets, 3 tight sets is what I think, Nick, and it's because of that Davidovich-Fokina match. So honestly, I think having survived that, he should be in good enough form to get through fairly comfortably.
But we know Khachanov has had a history of irritating Novak Djokovic a little bit. Mm-hmm. He beat Novak in the Paris Masters final of 2018, when Djokovic was actually looking pretty good at that point. He took a set off Djokovic when they played each other at Roland Garros in what year was it? It was after that match, I believe. It was, no, it wasn't. He didn't take a set. I'm thinking of someone else, but they did. I do remember him. Might have been a breakup or something during the 2020 Roland Garros, because they definitely played in the round of 16.
It's all about the rally temperament, really. As you say, like he is, even if he's not winning sets, whatever. It's about the fact he can keep rallies going for a long, long time unless somebody produces a big weapon against him. And this is what everybody's been waiting for. We've been waiting to see, will Novak's forehand kind of kick into gear, because he'll need that in these sort of matches. I think it didn't quite live up to the test against Davidovich-Fokina, to be fair, but there was enough of the rest of his game going on that I feel confident for him here. But honestly, Nick, if he doesn't quite get that last gear that he needs, then Alcaraz is the favourite. After that match against Musetti, Alcaraz is the favourite.
Yeah, maybe. I think we'll have to see. I like you, I'm sticking to my guns. I think you and I made the same pick that Novak Djokovic is going to win the title.
Yes.
I am also sticking to my guns because much as we can say Djokovic you're right, Djokovic doesn't find that gear, he's in trouble. I would say that I get about pretty much any other player against Alcaraz. The problem is that we've got with Novak Djokovic is he will find that extra gear out of nowhere. He just does it.
I know exactly
what he does.
He never ever turns up for these big matches without that gear ready, right? He knows he needs to be ready for it. He always is. This is why I picked him from the start. He just always is ready. He's going to be ready for sure. Yeah. If we get it. He has to go for Khachanov. The problem is with a player like Khachanov, actually, I think Novak obviously does rate Khachanov, but because it's the quarterfinals and he knows the semi-finals is going to be the big match sort of thing, he might not come into that match quite as firing as he could be. We could even see a 5-setter maybe, Nick, just if Novak's a little slow, but I just don't see Novak losing.
No, I don't either. And he's only lost to Khachanov once. Their head-to-head is 8-1. So it's comprehensive for me. I mean, Khachanov's looking pretty good though. Like, he's got to his 3rd consecutive major quarterfinal. He's gonna, barring Francisco Cerundolo winning the French Open, he is set to be back in the top 10, which is, he deserves to be here on the basis of his performance in majors, because he's delivering on the biggest stages when others aren't. And he did well against Sonego today. He putting him away. I didn't see the match, but judging by the scoreline, looks like he fended him off. I think Khachanov is definitely not a player anyone wants to see in their section of the draw in the minute, in any tournament.
Yeah. Absolutely not. Yeah, the whole big match Khachanov player thing is actually insane. Like, there's very, very few players who have made 3 major quarterfinals in a row in the current sort of standings. It's pretty rare. And if he makes a 3rd semi-final in a row, obviously, you'd have to be looking for ages to find players outside of the big 4 that are making those sort of records. So it's very, very impressive.
Yeah, and the thing about the thing that gets me is, like, surely now, whenever we do draw previews, we cannot overlook Khachanov, because I've obviously went on the draw. I've been on a few draw previous shows for Roland Garros, and I'm just guilty of this. We didn't really talk about Khachanov. We didn't talk about him much in Australia either. Surely now going forward, we have to like put his name in the mix as how far is Khachanov going to get? Is he getting another quarterfinal?
Yeah, absolutely. He deserves it. I had him as my quarter pick, Nick. I'll say that much.
Okay.
But then I also had some horrific picks. So
well, we'll see. I mean, like we'll probably have to compare notes afterwards. I mean, I will say when I did my draw and I put Khachanov versus Rublev, my instinctive reaction was, oh, Khachanov's going to win that. Yeah. But because I was rigidly sticking to my formula, I went for Rublev foolishly.
Didn't trust him.
But that was literally based on the formula that I'd created for doing predictions. And in fact, if I'd gone with my gut instinct, I would have gone with Khachanov.
Yeah, fair. Right, Nick. Do you want to talk about a few predictions, maybe? What do you think the other?
Well, before we talked a little bit about did you? I obviously assume you didn't catch any of Stefanos versus Offner.
Oh, of course, yeah. Sorry,
that's the last match.
Didn't get to see Stefan Offner. How'd that go?
I caught the beginning of it before the Sabalenka Stevens match. I mean, it was Offner actually got an early break. Got a good start. Seemed to be able to keep up with Steph in the rallies a little bit, but as the match went on, Steph kind of took control and did what Steph does. He is a top player still, and he wins the matches he's supposed to win on the whole. Daniel Galen on the US Open aside.
Let's be real. I mean, I might sound like I'm guilty for sort of, acing on Tsitsipas all the time, but in reality, he's a great player. I rate him. I think he's amazing. His forehand's incredible. His serve's incredible. He takes care of business. Sorry, Siri's talking to me. There we go. He takes care of business against every single other player. It's just the fact that the top 10 generally are more defensive, more counter-punching nowadays. It's not the sort of top 10 that he is ever going to be that good against. If he'd been sort of around, Nick, I would have said, 20 years ago, I think we could have seen him, sort of number. He was never going to beat Federer, obviously, but number 2 in the world sort of thing, easy, I think.
Sort of around the period where sort of we had the power vacuum, a bit of a power vacuum where we had Leighton Hewitt at the top with these other like younger players like Federer and Roddick and Ferrero kind of coming through and some of the old guys hanging around. Yeah, he would have been in the mix.
Yeah. Just a big enough serve, big enough forehand. I definitely think he could have done pretty great things.
Yeah.
And not until forward.
But he also would have probably got caught up in the Federer suddenly hitting GOAT mode in 2004 and no one being able to stop him.
Yeah. I was saying number 2 in the world. But still, second, best in the world bar Federer is still pretty good, right? I think
that's what Andy Roddick's been holding on to his entire career.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, Andy Roddick's a great player. The same as Steph, in a way they're similar. Obviously, Roddick was always a bit more about his serve, but he's got that explosiveness. He's just I do rate him. Is my point. To get to the quarters of the French Open again, it's pretty impressive. Because remember, he didn't get to the quarters last year. He got knocked out in the fourth round. Obviously, it was Holker, right?
Yeah.
But, still.
In retrospect, was actually an okay loss. At the time, we were like, how are you losing to Holger Rune? Now it's, oh, you lost to Holger Rune. That's okay.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. So, I rate him. Steph, he did a good job there to clean that up in straight sets against a player who had been threatening as a sort of dark horse throughout the tournament. Great stuff. I want to see something new against Carlos. I just don't think we will. It's not going to be that exciting for me, Nick. I don't think. I will be looking for something a bit different, but Jesus Christ, he keeps banging his head against the wall against Carlos, against Novak. It feels like it's always the same thing, always the same, game plan. You need something different.
I'm pretty confident though that Alcaraz Tsitsipas is probably going to be the night match on Chatrier on Tuesday.
Yeah,
of the options they've got, I think that's what they're going to pick.
Do you know maybe that's advantage Steph? To be honest, so it'll be a little bit harder for Carlos to exploit the backhand in that case. It doesn't bounce as high. It doesn't get quite as high up to the one-hander, and particularly on the serve as well. Remember him playing him in Barcelona though at the same time, Nick, and I'm pretty sure they played at night.
They did.
That was that wasn't even the go-to, Nick. That was the only serve Carlos played from the advantage side. It was just kick her out wide, and you've won the point basically. So maybe it won't matter. It probably won't matter. But at the same time, Carlos could just play plan A, and it's probably going to be enough to ruffle Steph's feathers. So he needs something just to fight back. I mean, something, Nick. And
yeah,
I'll get excited. But at the moment, I'm pretty placid about that match.
Yeah, I would kind of agree. Just with the matchup involved, we know how it's going to go. We've kind of seen it play out a few times. I am not massively thrilled at the prospect. I'm probably more intrigued by how Djokovic Khachanov will play out.
Yeah, likewise. Right, do you want to do a little look at the other half of the draw, Nick, before
See what's happening tomorrow? Yeah.
Yeah. I've got the draw in front of me rather than the order of play, but that works, I think.
Okay. Yeah, I don't think it matters too much. I think in terms of the order of play, for those who are interested, I think they've made some interesting choices for order of play tomorrow, because Chatrier, they went with Pera versus Jabeur, followed by Jarry Ruud, followed by Schmiedlova Goff, and then Dimitrov Zverev for the night match. And then Longlen is Sorribes Tormo Haddad Maia, Rune Cerundolo, Swiatek Serenko, Echeverry Nishioka.
But I get it. Like, Iga plays for like 50 minutes and then she's gone. Like, that's not of any interest to anybody, I'm obviously being silly because I would love to see Iga Swiatek play live, but that might be part of it. Genuinely, Iga Swiatek's matches aren't lasting that long.
I agree, and actually, you know what? She needs to. I don't think she's gone on Longland yet this year, it's about time. And I agree. I think there's they've put matches on Chatrier that have probably the most potential to go well. Thank you, Scott. I think certainly if you've got a Chatrier ticket for the day and maybe even the night session, you're in for an interesting one.
Yeah. Iga Serenko, any chance? Keep it short, keep it simple.
I put a poll on my Twitter. I need to check how it's going because I got a little bit of stick for it from some people of, is Lesia Serenko going to win a set against Iga Swiatek?
All right, okay. That's a big question.
That was based on, is Iga going to have her usual round full dip, and will it be severe enough for Serenko to take advantage? Because Serenko's the kind of player that Iga absolutely loves matchup-wise.
Nick, you're also talking about your fourth round curse, right? Your fourth round wobble for Iga. I guess that's what you're mentioning as well.
Yes, which I don't think will be enough for Serenko to take advantage of to win the match. So yes, that's what it's completely based on. Here we go. 120 votes. 83% do not believe that that Lesia Serenko will win a set against Iga Swiatek. I think that tells you something.
I thought it was going to be how many products is Iga going to add to her bakery, basically, was going to be the question.
I'm going to say at least one.
At least one seems fair. I'm going to say two. Do you know, Serenko's actually
I'll go one.
She's been playing with some power, actually. She's not just like a total pusher, for sure, which is obviously not going to work against Iga at the French Open. So there is a chance that she holds her own. Definitely, maybe 4-4 or something like that. But I do not see Serenko taking a set. I'm sorry. I don't think she's got big enough weapons. It would have to be a very nervy day. I don't see why Iga's that nervy at this point in the tournament, but I could be proven wrong, Nick.
Yeah, we could be proven wrong. Again, it depends on how bad the dip is. I don't think I agree with you. Just because of the matchup, because of the way Serenko plays, it's not going to be enough. I'm just having a look, just out of curiosity, because Serenko is a former Grand Slam quarterfinalist, and I completely forgot about this.
Yeah, she was like 23 in the world or something
2018
like that.
US Open. She beat Caroline Wozniacki.
Okay. Yeah, there you go. But then that's like, it's countered with the same sort of style. It's not an overpowering game there, right?
Yeah, she got very fortunate. Like, look at who she beat, like very similar style, like sort of counter-punchery games. She beat Van Uytvanck, Wozniacki, Siniakova, and Vondrousova to get to the quarterfinals, and then got overpowered by Naomi Osaka. So there you go. That tells you everything.
Yeah, it's still not a terrible list, but yeah, I just don't think it's going to happen, Nick. Right,
No.
Let's move on to the other match. Goff, Svitolina. I still think Goff obviously is mega vulnerable at the moment, but seeing that the Andreeva match was seriously impressive.
Yeah, she did well to rescue that.
Yeah, it's maybe making me change my mind on how I'm feeling about her at this tournament. I think maybe she still beats Svitolina just based on the matchup, but I don't think she'll have a chance against Iga.
Yeah, and this is a question I was hoping to ask someone when I was on the show with, and like, let's just play a little bit, because like we're making an assumption, but let's have the conversation anyway in case a shock happens and Goff isn't in the quarterfinals or something. But what does Coco Gauff need to do to try and make headway in the matchup against Iga? The forehand being the obvious answer, but like try and be a bit more specific.
Well, do you want to work with? Oh, hold on, my sound's gone.
Oh,
can you hear me, Nick? Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. I can hear you.
I'm back. Yeah, always.
Yeah.
In terms of trying to work with her current game, I guess, because she's not going to get a good forehand overnight.
Probably not. Yeah, let's go with current game, and then we'll go with what does she need to do to develop to get to that point.
I mean, she'd have to go mega aggressive on return. So if she does get a chance on her backhands, I guess, like try and pressurize her. No, honestly, Nick, I really don't.
There's no way.
I really don't think she's got enough power. I'm sorry. You need something that's going to rush Iga on a clay court, and she's got nothing. She's not got anything at this stage in her career to do that. It's almost impossible for her to come up with a game plan that's going to consistently work without redlining her forehand. Because the backhand's inherently a defensive shot. That's why she's such a good defender. That's why she's so good at moving. Still got a bit of zip to it, but she's not going to have the explosiveness of the forehand of anybody's biggest forehand to rush Iga on a clay court. And honestly, Iga's backhand, if it's inferior to Gauff's, it's by a whisker. Either way, I would have said, about equal. It holds its own basically for sure, and then the forehand's a different league. So it's just.
I think Gauff is never going to struggle to be the kind of player to challenge Iga on a clay court. Maybe a hard court, she might be able to develop something, but again, depending on what kind of hard court, as you said, like trying to redline it is going to be difficult if she's if Iga's able to rush the Gauff forehand. Grass might be a different prospect given Iga's historical struggles with the surface. But yeah, no, it's just a question I'm pondering, especially since I'm trying to work out the game of Coco Gauff for myself and trying to assess where she kind of goes from here. And at the minute, Swiatek is one of her biggest problems on tour right now.
She's got a good serve as well, I would say, Nick, but that totally doesn't work against Iga again, because she is actually the best returner in the world. I would say, like the way the balls she can get back into court and stuff are just insane, with depth. So it won't. Yeah, I've not got any hope, I'm afraid, Nick, if we do see that.
Not much hope there. Should we try and be a bit more optimistic? Maybe the other women's matches that are happening. Pera Jabeur, you have potentially Jabeur that as an upset alert then?
Yeah, I'd say that's mega dangerous. Pera packs a punch off the first ball, so if Jabeur does constantly find herself in the back foot, then there could be issues there. I don't want to underrate Jabeur though at the French Open. I know she's honestly on a hard court. I make her 50-50 about any player in the world, honestly, because her forehand and her backhand don't possess a ton of power, really. She's just a great changer of direction, and she's got a decent serve as well, for sure. And honestly, the US Open was just a lot of confidence. I would say I'm most confident she's good. But she came back from some very tight positions in the US Open, constantly coming back from players serving out sets and stuff. And anyway, my point is, on a natural surface, she's able to play her own game. That's what you want to see. She does tend to pick people apart doing that. I still make Jabeur the favourite for that reason, because I don't think Pera has played players like Jabeur that often on a clay court. But Pera could be dangerous if she's willing to be, proactive enough to just take the match by the scruff of the neck.
Completely agree. I think, Pera, I am a little bit surprised Pera's got this far, because I didn't imagine her as a clay court player. but that's probably because I haven't looked too different. Then I looked into her results. I was like, oh wait,
those two titles from last year. I don't know if you recall those.
Yeah, I kind of don't know why I didn't catch that, but yeah, I kind of think of Per as a standard American hardcourt player for some reason. But yeah, I agree. I think Jabeur has got the clay court prowess. I thought the way she fought back against Djokovic was really impressive. Really took control of the match. So I agree with you. I'd make Jabeur the slight favourite there. Pera getting through would be interesting, but I do kind of want that Iga on semi because I think that'll be fun to watch. And I think, regardless of, Pera might have the game to bother Swiatek, but I don't think she'd be able to maintain it for long enough to make it a good battle. And also, let's face it, like at the minute, I'm just on board the On's optimism train right now. I'm just going to ride that for as long as it runs.
Yeah, that's fair. It's just good to see her doing well again, right? So, natural surface, she loves it. She's on her bread and butter, basically. And then Sorribes Tormo had Maya.
That's going to be grind fest.
Yeah, Sorribes Tormo could win that for sure. Yeah, it will be a proper grind fest.
That's a 50-50 one for me because, that's just going to be brutal rallies constantly. And it's going to be... I don't think Sorribes Tormo is everyone's favorite player at the minute. But Haddad Maia's got her own controversies as well, so I don't know how many people are going to be tuning in for that one.
I rate both players a lot, actually. Obviously Sorribes Tormo's got some recent aggro to contend with, but generally the two players, I enjoy watching both of them. I think both of them are incredible fighters, particularly Haddad Maia, who I've seen in like awful positions in matches, and she still just keeps going and going and going. She's got such a good attitude on the court. I'll be tuning into it. I'm quite excited to see what happens there. I think Haddad Maia's got a good chance of coming through that and potentially beating her next opponent just based on that fighting spirit. And, I rate it quite a lot. So that could be Swiatek's semi-final opponent.
Could be. And let's face it, we know what that happened in Canada when they played. That was a real battle. Haddad Maia is someone who will make you work to beat her. But so is Sorribes Tormo. So, I will unfortunately have to miss that match, but watching it, but I will be keeping an eye on it. I'm expecting it to go about 3 hours probably. Very quick word on the beef with them.
Sorribes Tormo today with
Marie Bushkova.
Marie Bushkova, of course, yeah. Playing doubles against Nick. Do you know the whole story?
Oh, gosh, it was this is really bad. I don't actually know the names because they're not people I've actually heard of before.
I've got them here actually. So it was Kato and Tsuchiyada, even. So a Japanese and a Polish player anyway.
No, Indonesian.
Indonesian, sorry. Oh yeah, the flag's the other way around. Damien would definitely not like me for that one. Tsuchiyada even hits the ball towards the ball girl who wasn't looking. It hits her in the head, I believe. Bushkova and Sorribes Tormo basically push with the umpire to get a default. They do end up getting defaulted because the umpire goes down to talk to the ball girl. She was crying. She was in a bit of a state. And then that's her final decision. The umpire decides that they can't continue with the match. That's enough to default them. So, okay, yes, the ball was hit a little hard. But for me, it looked as though it was kind of just a sort of pass done, without much thought. It wasn't really a malicious ball. I don't know, Nick.
It was definitely someone knocking a ball. It was one of those cases where they'd lost a point, they were knocking the ball away. Kind of like Shapovalov with the umpire incident a few years back when he was just starting his career. Really unfortunate. It's one of those things. It's a very complicated situation because it's very easy to kind of go in the camp of one direction or the other. My view is they definitely should have been a default, but the way it happened was not ideal or potentially very sportsmanlike. So I think that's where I kind of go with the default definitely should have happened. The circumstances were not ideal.
Yeah. It was a shame Yeah, I really don't think it was that necessary in the way that Sorribes, Tormo and Buzkova pushed for it. They should have just, they should have let the umpire make this decision, basically. There's no need for the players to get involved there. So it was a bit sad to watch, and hopefully whatever has to happen there happens. Maybe Sorribes, Tormo, she's not going to apologise for what she did, to be fair. So yeah, it's just a shame. Like, we'll leave it at that. It was a bit sad.
Yeah. It wasn't ideal. And then the other beef, I think there's some people I've seen on Twitter who will not let go that Haddad Maia had a doping offence a few years back. That's the only other thing that maybe just to answer the question from Terry.
Yeah. You'll have to kind of do all the digging up and make your own opinion on that one. But I don't know. For me, she passed basically. Afterwards, she was kind of exonerated of it and stuff. For me, that was enough.
Yeah. It's enough for us to move on from. That's not an issue for me whatsoever, and I don't think it's an issue for you either.
Yeah, exactly. Should we end with some men's predictions for the other side as well? Should we just
definitely.
Nick, let me get the draw up. Of course, we've got. Can't remember any of them off the top of my head. Just give me a second.
It's quite an interesting draw. I mean, let's. I think there's two matches that are happening at the same time that I think with the scheduling of it, I'm like, I would want to watch both of those. Mm-hmm. And it's a high-profile Scandinavian high-profile Scandinavian player taking on an informed South American.
Good.
And that could describe either match, and they're both absolutely fascinating lineups. And I'm not sure how. I would say that whilst I wouldn't, there's one of them I wouldn't put an upset alert. I definitely wouldn't be surprised if an upset happened in either of those matches.
Yeah, likewise. Let's just talk about all the predictions that we get right, Nick. Why not? Cerundolo, I had beating Taylor Fritz in the third round.
Same.
Yeah, I knew the forehand there would be a massive, massive threat, and generally he's more comfortable being offensive on a clay court than Fritz. Generally, he's just one of the best front foot players on the tour. And actually, Rune could have some issues there because he's one of the best defensive players on the tour. So it's one of the few kind of styles of play that can kind of bully Rune a little bit, kind of see that defense kind of crumble a little bit. But the thing with Rune is he's just got so many different options. He's not looked physically weary yet either, which is what we wanted to see. Obviously, that was the question mark going into the tournament. Can Rune go 5 sets for 2 weeks over 7 matches? He's looked absolutely fine so far. Obviously, the Monfils walkover might have helped in the second round. I'm confident Rune can change up his game plan enough to come through that. But actually, I might predict a 5-setter there, Nick.
I wouldn't be surprised if it was 5. I'm going to predict 4. I definitely think Cerundolo's winning a set.
As I said, so Matthew there, Cerundolo winning would be a major surprise. He has got the offensive game to make this difficult. Like, don't be surprised if it gets very tight because, as I say, Rune prefers to go defensive. He doesn't like playing his offensive style as his plan A. If he's forced to play something different, then don't be surprised if the wheels come off for a set or 2. I think Cerundolo can make it really, really difficult. And honestly, he once he gets into the top 20, I think people will start to respect him a little bit more. Don't be surprised, if this guy's beating top players on clay for years to come, essentially.
Yeah, agreed. There's he's getting bigger and bigger years every year. He's going to be someone very, very dangerous in draws for a while. Jari Ruud. That's an interesting one.
Yeah, Jari Ruud. Again, I had it at the start of the... No, I didn't, actually. That's a lie. That's a lie. That was a barefaced lie. I was keen to have Jari go through, but I think I said Struff was going to beat him. But I obviously was big on Jari. I was like, I'm pretty sure Jari's going to come in with the same form he had in Geneva, even if the altitude there helps his serve. Now he is through to the 4th round. I would make him the fave against Ruud. I think. I don't think Ruud's playing with as much. I just don't think he's playing with as much confidence. Jari's playing fine from the baseline. Okay, Ruud should win most of the baseline rallies, but Jari's serve is like probably the biggest left in the draw, I would say. he's got a very good chance of winning 3 points over and over again for that serve. And Ruud's just had a habit of getting into really, really, high stakes matches and not winning them this year. Or actually, it's been quite early on in tournaments, hasn't it? Generally, but anyway, he's had the butterflies in his stomach.
Jarry beat Ruud 2 weeks ago. He beat Ruud in Lyon on his way to the title.
So it must have been Geneva. Was it not Geneva?
Geneva. Hang on.
I think it was Geneva. That's what I was saying, because Geneva is a very it's a very high altitude tournament. It does make a big difference in terms of what you can do with the serve for Jarry. If Jarry does win this against Ruud again here, it would probably almost definitely be 5 sets, because Ruud's got a good enough game to win. But I just think Jarry's playing well enough to keep a sustained high level going, and Ruud is feeling underconfident enough that he could go off the boil for sort of very high pressure moments of the matches.
I completely agree. I think this is the kind of Jarry's in the kind of form that will do that. Ruud has a lot of question marks around him at the minute. The one thing I will say is his kind of attitude this tournament so far has been quite positive. Ruud, and he does. Okay, Australia aside, does have a habit of coming out for these big tournaments with no momentum and doing something. That he got to the semis in Rome. So I am a little bit more optimistic about Ruud winning this one. I think if it goes 5, I think he actually probably might win it, but we'll have to see. I definitely think Jarry's got a very, very good chance of beating him. I do have that one on upset alert.
Yeah.
But if you ask me to make a call who's going to win it now, I would actually go with Ruud.
The thing for me is you can envision Jarry taking Ruud to really pressurized moments in the matches, more so than other players, because of that serve, right? So he rattles through service games, Ruud rattles through service games, it goes to a tie break. Suddenly Ruud has to be in a pressure moment that he wouldn't have been against other players, and Jarry could take advantage just because Ruud's been having this really flaky season. So for that reason, the fact that Jarry should be able to hold his own enough to take Ruud to higher pressure, higher stakes situations, I really could see Jarry taking this one. Genuinely could. I know that Ruud should win most of the baseline rallies, but I still think Jarry's playing well enough, solid enough that he could trouble Ruud. And if he does put any pressure on, I wouldn't be surprised if he crumbles a little bit.
Yeah.
That's my thoughts.
I'm not going to argue with you because I can see that happening too. I just maybe less confident in happening than you, but not by much.
Yeah, fair. And then the other 2 matches we've got here, of course, Echeverry and Nishioka, and Dimitrov and Zverev. Echeverry, firstly, again, he's playing so well. He's one of those players, again, people are looking at like, who the hell's this guy? So somebody that John McEnroe would have been like, oh, this guy's like, I've never seen this guy in my life. He's probably played like 1 ATP match and now he's in the 4th round of the French. And Damien obviously is on Twitter like, I mean, come on, John. Like he's like been winning clay court matches all season. Like he's a hugely, impressive challenger player. He's just taken the same level into the ATP tour. Like he's always been an incredible player. He's really, really stepped up this year. I find obviously, he should be the favourite against Nishioka, but I fancy his chances in the quarterfinals as well against either of those players. Like we could see an Echeverry semi-final.
Yeah, I'd be here for that. I definitely agree with you. Echeverry is the favourite over Nishioka. I am surprised Nishioka got this far. Although having said that, that was based on Medvedev being here at this point still. And to be honest, Nishioka did very, very well to come through against Shiboffield. But that second set tiebreak, they played in their 5 set of being critical. Second consecutive second week of a major, given that before this year he'd never got this far. He's on the up, Nishioka. But I do think I don't think of it as a clay quarter. Echeverry is a clay quarter, and that's what's edging it for me. And if you've got Echeverry in the semis, which I agree with you, I could see that happening. I'm probably again a bit like with the Jarry thing, less confident in that happening. But I don't think that's an unrealistic possibility. And if it is Echeverry in the semis, fantastic. Hey, if things fall a certain way, like if utter craziness happens, you could see an all South American semi-final.
Who knows? Yeah, who knows? That's true. I hadn't thought about that. It will be very interesting because I think Echeverry against Zverev, for sure. has the game to beat Zverev. Zverev's obviously probably back to playing close to last year's tennis, but in terms of his offensive capabilities, he's a little, he can be a little passive, and Echeverry is super offensive, kind of like Cerundolo in that way. He can take control of the points, and also happy to grind out points as well. He's just playing super solidly in general. He looks incredibly difficult to beat. So Zverev against Dimitrov, yes, I would make him the favourite there, but against a player who's just playing insanely good clay court tennis, that'll be a proper test. So I could see Echeverry taking that. Dimitrov, by the way, his French Open pedigree has been so bad historically. So to get to the fourth round here was already very impressive.
This is his second time in the fourth round of the French.
There you go. So it must have been one other time, right, Nick, or something like that?
2020. And I think he's got to the Monte Carlo semis before. Like, his clay court record, don't get me wrong, is not as good compared to most of the top 20 or 30.
In Monte Carlo, he's great. Like, I don't know why the hell he can't take that into Roland Garros. Like, the conditions aren't a million miles apart.
No, I don't favour him against Zverev on that night match. First of all, Zverev has played in the night match conditions his last two matches. Secondly, he has got far better clay pedigree and Roland Garros pedigree than Dimitrov. Any other event, I would be saying this is going to be a really juicy clash, particularly say if it was at Wimbledon. Or at least definitely on grass. But in this situation, I think Zverev is the heavy favourite to go through. At which point we would be hoping that Rune and Ruud both win their matches, because then they'd get the night match on Wednesday, which would be probably a repeat of their blockbuster quarterfinal from last year, and repeat of the aggro there. And also, to be honest, just gives the crowd who are getting the evening matches a little bit more variety.
Yeah. Oh, I'm so there for a Rune Ruud rematch. I mean, everybody on Twitter is. This tournament's been so good, Nick, honestly. Like, we'd love to see that.
Weirdly, this is the first day on the men's tour that we haven't had a 5-set match happen.
Yeah, so it is. Wow.
It's day 8.
And we've still had some good matches as well. I mean, the Sonego Kachanov one was super tight. The rest were kind of one-sided, but just seeing Alcaraz like that was enough for me as well.
Noble service will resume tomorrow, I suspect.
I suspect too. Yeah.
Can I ask?
Go on.
I'd like to ask you a question. Okay, so there's obviously been a lot of discussion around sort of after kind of, we say chaos. In reality, the only chaotic bit was Medvedev going out. Maybe Sinner as well, but we weren't really sure where Sinner stood. Who's your favourite to come out this half? Like, we've been talking about who we're winning it. We talk about the top half of the draw a lot. Who did you have in your final, and who do you have in there now?
I had Medvedev in my final, Nick.
So did I.
Yeah. Unfortunately, so there you go. We were talking about all the. I picked Cerundolo to beat Fritz, and I had this and that. Yeah, I had Medvedev in my final. I'll own it. That's a terrible prediction. But now, who do I pick now, Nick? Probably still Rune. And honestly, I'm not saying that with a ton of confidence. He probably doesn't get 70% of the vote or anything like that. It's not massive. I still think if he comes up against, I'll stick with Rune. He's just because he's the best of a not particularly inspiring bunch, I would say. And nobody's not in a bad way. I just mean there's nobody that's the massive favourite is all I mean. I'd go Rune, but not by loads.
I would agree. Rune is this. It's the same for me. Like I was very much high on the Rune hype. And like this clay court season's been super impressive from him on the whole. Okay, he didn't win those 2 Masters finals, but they were pretty close. He just seemed to have a problem with Russian players. I would say, like, I don't know. I just thought I'd ask because some people are going, is Ruud waking up? Some people are going, is Zverev going to be back in a Grand Slam final?
Yeah. I mean, the Zverev threat does loom because, most people would fancy him to get to the semis, right? And then again, in the semis, against Rune, a sort of fellow, defender in a way. They've both got one of the best defensive games on the tour. Yeah, he's got a chance. Definitely, he's got a chance. So it could be interesting. Nick. I still pick Rune. I still think Rune is a better defender than Zverev. I think he's in better form. I think obviously he's in better form. I think he's in better physical condition, ironically, as well. So Rune, Nick.
Yeah,
that's my final answer.
I'm going with Rune as well. And that will definitely be an entertaining final, whether it's against Alcaraz or Djokovic.
Yeah. Yeah. I think I'd prefer Djokovic. Obviously, I love Carlos. I think he's got one of the most appealing games on the tour. But in terms of the storyline, the history, Novak's got to try and get the 23rd. He's got to try and pull away. You can't resist it, surely.
I know for a fact John's going to be hoping for an Alcaraz Rune final so that Nostradamus would actually be right for once.
Fair. Yeah. Well, what are you hoping for, Nick? And do you have Rune getting to the final as well?
I do, yeah. I mean, I think the most likely final is Djokovic versus Rune. If I am going with what I think would be the most interesting final, I'd go with Alcaraz Rune.
Okay. Yeah. Alcaraz in another final, even the French. Yeah. That would be amazing.
That's when I can imagine two next gens going head to head would be quite entertaining.
Yeah. And we've got a couple of comments from Ghibli there. I'll just address them. So Cerundolo, I fear his lack of an all-round game might be exposed by a good defensive player like Rune. I honestly think his offensive capabilities could be good enough on a good day for him that might not be much of an issue. He's also very good in big moments. My point is he has a red line that could threaten Rune. It's just obviously, you wouldn't expect him. You wouldn't bet on him turning up and being that good. But there's a high chance, he does that. It could happen. I just watch out for it, because Cerundolo, if his forehand's firing, it really doesn't matter how hard you defend, how much you run about. He can take control of the rallies quite easily. So it could be very, very interesting to see what happens there if Cerundolo's playing his best tennis.
Yeah.
Sorry, my mic's went off there.
No, it's all good. I didn't really have much of a comment there because we've talked about this already.
The other thing for the next 7 days will be uncertain, of course.
British tennis will definitely be, judging by the people I interact with the most, everyone's excited for the Surbiton Challenger going underway because you've got Dan Evans and Andy Murray, which is the one that everyone wants to see, plus a couple of other Brits in action. I believe Liam Brody and Ryan Pennister are playing, off the top of my head. And Jamie's covering it. So that's exciting. So we've got coverage across the two biggest tournaments in tennis next week, the two big tournaments for the following week, which should be entertaining.
Love it. Absolutely love it. Is there anything else we need to cover, Nick, before we close up shop?
I think we've covered everything that's happened today. We've had a good look at tomorrow. And I think tomorrow's going to be a very good day of tennis. And today's been very entertaining as well. So always good chatting tennis with you, Jack, and having the opportunity to look a little bit to the future and making some cheeky predictions.
Yeah, absolutely, Nick. As always, a pleasure to talk to you too. We'll catch everybody on Talking Tennis soon. Please join us the next few nights. As always, Last Ball Drops will be here every night of the French Open up until Sunday. So please join when you can. Nick, I'll talk to you when I can. Of course, I'll be back on if I get any free time. And see everybody soon.
Cheers, everyone.
If you enjoyed this video, make sure you hit that like button. Don't forget to subscribe and click that notification bell so you don't miss out on all things tennis.